Good evening and welcome to Greater Somerville for May 22nd, 2012. I'm Joe Lynch. My guest tonight had his first professional boxing match when he was just 16 years old. On October 21st, 1948, he knocked out Mr. Jones in just one round. Perhaps his most famous professional matches were with Hall of Famer Carmen Basilio in 1955, going 12 rounds each and keeping fans on the edge of their seats. Both matches are the stuff of legend in the boxing world. His legacy is an undying part of Boston sporting history. This Boston native was able to sell out the old Boston Garden, was inducted into the official National Italian-American Hall of Fame in Chicago, and in Boston's North End, one can walk down Tony DeMarco Way. Having once fought on the undercard to Rocky Marciano, it is my pleasure to welcome the former world welterweight champion and now author of his autobiography, Nardo. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome Tony DeMarco to the set of Greater Somerville.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you very kindly.
Thank you, my friend.
That.
Yeah, we've had a great chat before the show. But can I tell what your wife said to me?
I'm not sure.
Your wife said you married up when you married Irish.
She likes to speak in reverse.
She does. She does. She's a little reverse there on it, though, huh?
No,
you look great, my friend.
She's great. She's a great person.
Yeah.
And we're doing very well.
Terrific.
I've known her for quite some time, and in fact, we just married 2 years ago yesterday.
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And,
I know she's outside in the lobby watching
yeah.
us, so we'll say happy anniversary to her,
yes.
too. Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil her, though.
I wouldn't spoil it,
Yeah.
Tony. I wouldn't spoil it. Yeah. But it's great to have you here on the set of Greater Somerville. I told you before the show I was at a political fundraiser, sitting at one of those big round, banquet tables, and somebody overheard me say Tony DeMarco's name, and they said, he's on your show.
Oh, great.
Yeah? So I think a lot of people know you from the Medford community, too. There's been a lot of time over there, yeah. Yeah? That's terrific.
Yeah,
We're going to talk a little bit.
I spent a lot of time in Medford.
You do?
By that I mean we have a group of our past chums.
Your friends, yep.
And we frequent the Middle Glen Mall.
Yep.
And we have our coffee and biscuits there and whatever else.
Biscuits, yeah. We're going to mention this book a few times, but I want to show folks, this is the cover of Tony's book. The name of the book is called Nardo. And we're going to give more information about this, but I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. You know, boxing, everyone knows what the sport of boxing is when they see it visually. But tell me a little bit, when you were a kid growing up in the North End, getting into boxing wasn't just because it was a sport. It was also a survival for you, staying off the streets, staying out of trouble. Tell me a little bit about the clubs that you were involved with when you were a kid.
Well, I wouldn't take it that way because we were kids in the corner, and we had we had different views of different things, and we were in conflict from time to time, but nothing phenomenal. The way I feel that my boxing game in my life has started is with the park department organizations and boys clubs.
The recreation sponsored by the city, yeah?
By the city. It's big, very, very big. I don't think we have enough of it today, frankly.
Yeah.
And I belong to the Burroughs Newsboys Foundation, and it was a big, huge club in Somerset Street in Boston that welcomed everybody from Boston towards the city of Boston.
And it was all the immigrant kids that would go there.
Definitely.
The Irish, the Italian, the Portuguese.
Definitely.
Yep.
We played basketball, we played billiards, we played all kinds of games, and including boxing, and also I don't want to leave the North End out because we had the Zarro Center, and the Zarro Center at the time was the North End bathhouse, but Nazaro Center is there now, and Mr. Nazaro, Mike Nazaro, he was the chief Andre there. We would play under his supervision, basketball, triples, whatever else, you know. But naturally, there were boxing gloves over there.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is how I got introduced to my profession.
How old were you, Tony, when you got into the ring for the first time?
Well, maybe 13.
13. Yep.
Maybe 13, but prior to that, my buddy and I, Cal, we would pick up the gloves and, you know, slap each other with no meaning. We didn't really take it serious. But after a while, we did take it serious. Mm-hmm. And we did say, what is this all about? We just thought, you know, in the beginning, it was just slapping each other around with the big gloves.
Who was the first one to take you under his wing?
Well, the first one was between Harry Sullivan, who's from the Burroughs Newsboys Foundation, and the Boys Club, again, and Michael Nazaro. Between both of them, in different clubs, I would say they introduced me to the sport even further, because after we played around with my buddy Cal and other friends, Fernando and numerous other guys in my corner, and by the way, even Tony DeMarco himself, who's a real Tony DeMarco.
We're going to get to that piece of it.
A couple, 3 years older than I.
Yeah.
But we would start learning the basics of how to throw a punch.
Yeah.
What a jab was.
Yeah.
Or a hook or
A hook,
right
yeah.
cross or uppercut. Prior to that, we were just slapping each other.
Right, right.
And now I start getting interested in it.
Now they're teaching you the fundamentals, and the art
exactly.
form of boxing.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So now it's the hand goes here and the hand goes there, and you know, and sure enough, we start to deliver the punches the way it should be.
Because it's one of the oldest athletic sports there is. The Greeks, the Romans, they were all boxing at that time. So this isn't a new sport. It's been refined over the years. And then I'm going to tell the story, but I don't want to give away too many stories in Tony's book, Nardell. It's the autobiography, and it was written with Ellen Zappala. Zappala. And it's the name of the book is Memoirs of a Boxing Champion, the autobiography of undisputed welterweight champ Tony DeMarco. But Tony, I'm going to let you tell this story. How old were you, and what did you do by taking the name Tony DeMarco?
Well, the story goes like this. Like I mentioned prior, in the beginning we just slapped each other with the gloves and never took it serious. Then we started getting serious, and then we looked at pitches, moving pitches, and you kind of took a fancy to it. Maybe the fancy, the glory of it all also, you know. But then I got confident, and it gave me confidence, and I felt that I was good at it. You know, it wasn't just that I wanted to put the gloves on. Then I felt very comfortable with it.
Do you think you were a natural with this, or did you have to keep training and training and training?
You know, I'm not sure about a natural. I would say I had potential.
Yeah.
You know, I had a cousin of mine that was a boxer, as a matter of fact. I never saw him box, much before my time, but he did have the same name as I, by the name of Leonardo Leotta. And he fought amateurs, and I understand he was a very good fighter. But like I say, I got interested, and then I started going into tournaments with Mike Nazaro Sr. and Harry Sullivan and the Burroughs Newsboys Foundation. And let me just tell you the first tournament that I was in, a boxing tournament that I was in, the Burroughs Newsboys Foundation. All the clubs in Boston joined in it to see who was the champion of the greater Boston.
So each of the clubs were competing with each other, yeah?
Each city. And I knocked out my first opponent. I don't know what his name was, but I knocked on my first opponent, and there was a three-day appointment with all different divisions,
Yep.
and I think I was 95 pounds,
Yeah.
and I was a southpaw, by the way, which people don't realize, but I was a southpaw, and I knocked out my first opponent. And the next day, I knocked out my second opponent, and the next following day, I knocked out the third opponent. So I won the championship of the Greater Boston tournament in my weight.
And you
my
were
weight
hooked from there, weren't you?
And I was definitely.
Yeah.
And between that and seeing pictures and hearing stories, the local fighters in my corner, you know, 'cause we had a lot of local fighters in my corner.
So let's go. You mentioned a little bit before that your Christian birth name is Leonardo.
My birth name is Leonardo.
Leonardo, hence Nardo.
Yes.
Nardo, a tribute. You told me it's a tribute to your parents.
Yeah, I kept that because for the book because I had to give it up for a little while, simply because I was not of age.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1947, it changed now. In 1947, you had to be 40. You had to be 17 years old.
Yep.
To fight amateurs.
And you weren't of age.
And I was.
So what did you do?
50, so I went to the. No, I'm sorry. Let me take that back. You had to be 18 years old.
Yeah.
And fight amateurs in 1946. Anyways, I borrowed the name of Tony DeMarco. I went to the corner, Fleet Street, which is, by the way, is called Tony DeMarco Way now.
Fleet Street.
And
yep.
I went to the corner and I saw Harry and Mike and Peter, and all of a sudden Tony comes about, and I asked him how old he was, and finally he said someone said 18 years old. It was he that was 18 years old. I said, listen, you have to do me a favor. I want to start fighting. And I got a fight tomorrow. There's a tournament. I want to enter, but I need a birth certificate. I need to prove that I'm 18 years old. He said, well, what do you want me to do? I said, well, let's go to Sacred Heart's Church. You see Father Mario. And Father Mario will ask him for a baptismal record for working purposes. And you give me the baptismal record and I'll fight under your name. Is that all? Absolutely. Just try it. So we go to Sacred Heart's Church, and Father Mario comes out, and he says, you know, he spoke, he's from Italy, he spoke a little broken English, and he said, can I do for you? And then Tony told him, I need a baptismal record for working purposes. I want to go to work for my mother and father. And Father Mario was very happy about this. Oh, you a nice boy, he says. You go to work, or you help your father, you help your mother. They'll be proud of you. I'll give you a baptismal record. And he gives Tony his baptismal record, September 16, 1929. And Tony gives me the birth certificate. And I go to the boxing commission, and they says, what's your name? I says, Tony, and I look again to repeat, Tony DeMarco. And I was born September 16, 1929. So, all right, boom, examination, here's your birth, here's your boxing.
And you were in.
I became an amateur fighter.
Yep. Yeah. I think that is a terrific story. So here's a question.
You know, I cannot help but to finish this story, because Tony DeMarco, we call him Lobo. He decided he wanted to fight. So this is after a couple of my fights that he saw. I said, well, whose name are you going to use? He says, I'm going to use my own name. I said, you cannot use your name. I'm using your name. I'm Tony DeMarco now. So what do? He says, go to the corner, borrow someone's name. So he goes to the corner, the same thing he did that I did was Peter, Mike, Harry.
He got somebody else's
name. He got Michael's name.
Yeah.
And Michael gives him same thing, Father Mario, and Father Mario want a baptismal record. The same with, oh, you're a nice boy, you're good boy, you go to work, you help your mother, you help your father, and he gives him his baptismal record. And Michael gives it to Tony, and Tony goes to the boxing commission, becomes an amateur fighter.
So one more
He was
question
of
for you,
age.
though.
Yes.
Then we're going to move on. Did you ever give the real Tony DeMarco any royalties for using his name?
Oh, I bought him coffee. No, we were pals. We were pals. We were always pals. We were always pals. Walter. And then to conclude this particular story, don't you think that Michael Tremini, that was Tony DeMarco's name?
DeMarco, yeah.
He wanted to fight. No, I'm sorry. Let me take this. Let me correct this. He was older than both of us.
Okay.
Actually, he had borrowed his brother's name much before we did, and he fought under his brother's name.
Be that as it may, the Tony
The three of
DeMarco,
us will fight under assumed names.
the Tony DeMarco goes on. Tell us about the fight that you took the title.
Well, I like to talk about that. But first of all, I want to say that in my career of 71 professional fights, I fought 8 world champions. And when I fought Johnny Saxon for the championship, I was eager and I was ready. I was determined, and I could punch. And I knocked him out in the 14th round.
Mm-hmm.
And I hit him consecutively 24 punches after I knocked him down. And he just couldn't get out of the way. And I just stayed standing up. It was a pathetic fight, situation, because they should have stopped. I think they should have stopped. But finally I hit him the last punch, and Mel Manning, who was the referee, stopped the fight. I became the champion of the world.
And you describe it in great, vivid detail in the book.
Yeah.
You talk about that night.
I talk about that.
Yeah.
And then I talk about the fight, as you mentioned prior, with Cameron Basilio.
What, Basilio, yeah.
Which is, it was considered the greatest fights of the century. The second one was considered the best fight of the century, and the first one was considered the second best fight of the century.
Yep.
As good as Johnny Saxon's fight was, unfortunately, I lost with Cameron Basilio, but he was a great fighter, and he held his own, and he became champion.
Tommy Menino followed your career for years.
Yes.
And he honored you with Tony DeMarco Way. How did that feel? In Boston's own North End.
Well, I grew up there. I was born there. We played. We had that Fleet Street was a cobblestone, cobblestone streets, and we played baseball. We played football, touch football. We played numerous of games right on the street.
Yeah.
And there was very few cars. Occasionally, a cars to come by, and we would get aggravated about it. A lot of nerve that we had. But all of a sudden now it's we don't naturally can't play the street anymore. There's so many cars.
Yeah.
But in those days, cars was a novelty, we'll say.
I loved looking at some of the pictures, Tony. I mean, your career and your life is just absolutely fascinating. Pictures in here, in you in Vegas with Wayne Newton and Jimmy Durante, and let me just pick out a few. Jack Dempsey. You have a picture of you and Jack Dempsey in here.
That was a great honor. That was the first picture I've taken as a fighter. Jack Dempsey came to the Burroughs Newsboy Foundation, and he refereed. He took part in refereeing my fight with somebody.
And a thrill for a young kid to meet Dempsey.
And he was the greatest.
Yeah.
I mean, he was greater than Joe Louis at the time.
You and Tony Bennett. You and Ted Williams.
Ted Williams.
Jesus, Tony.
That's exactly.
Look at this.
And I met all these people. I've corresponded with them, and it's been good. Life has been good to me.
And you told me a fascinating story, and I had never, that you used to box at Fenway Park.
Yes.
Yeah. The old Boston Garden. I remember the fights there, but at
Yes.
Fenway Park.
I boxed in Boston Garden. I think I fought more main events at least
Yep.
in Philly Park than anybody else. But in Boston Garden, yeah. Now Fenway Park, I fought there twice for George Arujo in 54, and I fought Vince Martinez in 56. And I was the only, I think, I'm pretty sure, the only fighter that fought there. In fact, they had their 100-year anniversary.
For that Fenway.
Fenway
Yep.
Park.
Yep.
And they established my name and my picture,
Yeah.
for that matter, me hitting my opponents. And because I was the only one that participated in
Well, I'll tell you what's fascinating about the book, Tony. You not only talk about your career and your profession and the fights, but you also pay great tribute to the city of Boston, where you grew up, and to your family for all these years of supporting you and being with you. You want to talk a little bit about some of the friends that you still have? I know you still have a big group of friends in the Boston area.
Well, yes, I do, and I belong to clubs also, and Sons of Italy, and Knights of Columbus, numerous of clubs, but we also have our own local street clubs
Yep.
and corners, and we're still friendly, and it's not like the old days, but it's not too far from it. Nothing is the same.
Right.
Everything changes,
Right.
but we still partake in our friendship.
I forgot to ask you, what year did you eventually retire from fighting?
I retired in 80. I'm trying to think now. I started 48. I started in 48, 62.
62, so the early 60s. Yeah? But you went on to make this whole second career. I mean, you were...
Well,
Yep.
then I had to go to Arizona
Yep.
because of my son's illness,
Yep.
and I was there for 20 years.
Yeah.
I was a liquor salesman to begin with, and well, prior to being a liquor salesman in Arizona, I was a liquor salesman when I retired. I was a liquor salesman here in Boston, and then when we had to go to Boston, I became a liquor salesman there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had my mother, my wife, and my ex-wife, and my son and
Yep.
my daughter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I became a liquor salesman there, and then I decided that I should be in the bar business, and I opened up a place called Tony DeMarco's Living Room. In the living room, why the living room? Because I had all my pictures over there, as we spoke of Jack Dempsey, as we spoke of Ted Williams and Marciano,
Yeah. Yeah.
and numerous of,
And it's a great read.
numerous of.
It's a great read about the visitors to Tony DeMarco's living room, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That is terrific. It's absolutely fascinating to read this book, though. Here's another with you. Who's this guy?
That's Rocky Marciano.
Rocky Marciano, right there. There you are.
And this is like Governor.
The governor out in Arizona?
Oh, yeah.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Oh, Saltonstall.
Caparo.
Is that Saltonstall?
No, Heston. Anyway, this is Caparo,
Oh, yeah.
and this is Mickey Walker, the middleweight, welterweight middleweight champion in his day.
Yeah.
Great fighter.
Fascinating read.
Numerous of there's a lot of good stories.
Let me mention it one more time, and then we have a few minutes left, and I want to talk about an event that's coming up on June 6th. You're going to be doing a book signing for Nardo.
Yes.
Yep. One more time. Tony DeMarco's book, Nardo, Memoirs of a Boxing Champion, the autobiography of undisputed welterweight champ Tony DeMarco. And then one more story I need to ask you. Why did you decide you wanted to write it now?
Well, actually, I'll be very frank with you. I started this a long time ago.
Yep.
And things happened in my life and I had to stop. It completely stopped. And like I mentioned, for my son, I lost my son in the car accident in Arizona. We were there because of his illness. And we lost him in that car accident. And I
Went off to the side for a while.
Yep. Then, of course, my daughter lived with me. We came back to Boston, and I became a court officer
Yep.
for a number of years.
Yeah.
And my daughter lived with me, and unfortunately, she died of cancer, and the fight, and life goes on.
And you talk very tenderly about your family in this book as well.
Oh, naturally.
Yeah, yeah. But on June 6th, we were talking about that. June 6th, you're going up to Toscano's in Peabody.
Oh.
And there'll be a buffet dinner up there, and you're going to be doing your book signing.
Yes, I
Of
will.
the newest book.
Yes.
And then my understanding is that there's also a documentary that's been made about your life. And they're going to be showing it up on June 6th up at Toscano's.
I'm just fine, yes.
Yeah, that's terrific. What a tribute to you. You gave tribute to, everybody in here, all the folks that you met along the way, the folks that encouraged you. Now it's your time for tribute.
I've been lucky.
Yeah.
I've been lucky.
Yeah.
I really have.
Yeah. So what's the next act? You're a boxer, world champion boxer, author. You told me that you were participating in, what's the name of the play?
Joey Maria's wedding.
Joey and Maria's Wedding.
Oh, yeah.
So you were an actor.
I've been doing that this is my 11th year.
Yep, for the 11 years in Joey and Maria's
my 11th
Wedding.
year now.
Court officer, businessman. What's the next act?
Well, this is Hollywood.
Yeah.
My looks will not take me to Hollywood.
Oh, you'd be surprised. Don't say that too loud. Your wife's sitting outside and watching. She's going, I think he's a pretty good-looking guy.
She probably could be Hollywood. I don't know about me.
There you
I'll
go.
manage her.
There you go. Tony, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here on the show.
Thank you.
Best wishes, my friend.
Gracias.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been it for Greatest Somerville, May 22nd, 2011. My guest has been the one, the only, Tony DeMarco, former undisputed welterweight champion of the world. For Greatest Somerville, I'm Joe Lynch. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week. Stay safe and stay informed.